discussion. I am joined tonight by our good friend, Steven Beschloss, who is one of the smartest guys in American politics and history that you're going to hope to meet. And Steven, thank you for coming on the show tonight. I want to lead out with the healthiest president ever. He came back from Walter Reed today, and doctors proclaimed that he had the body of an 18-year-old Adonis,
right,
and the most acute mental state of any human being, no matter where they are in history. When the rest of us all know that this cover-up is about as bad as Woodrow Wilson's of Edith Wilson signing the president's signature while he was the victim of a massive stroke. So what's your takeaway on this, the latest lies from Walter Reed on Trump?
Well, how many more cognitive tests does he have to take to prove that he's not mentally ill? I mean, and he's not in an accelerated cognitive decline. And we all have eyes to see. We can see the extreme bruising. We can see the cankles. We can see what's going on with our own eyes. It's not like it's not a mystery. We can also see him having an inability to stay awake during barely any meeting. So,
yeah.
It's obvious in front of our faces. The horror of this is that, in a democracy, we count on being able to know who our leaders are and what they're doing, because their responsibility is to lead and to serve. And when this guy is hiding everything that he's doing, he leaves us all in this state of darkness, and that's a danger for the country.
Yeah, Stephen, everybody was critical when Biden started to show some slippage, and the White House didn't dig in, didn't do themselves a lot of favors by keeping sort of like he's fine. But this has now evolved into a very large active cover-up, it seems to me. And it's not just spinning from the podium. Oh, he's doing great. He's an older guy, but he's fine. This is now Donald Trump saying everything's perfect with me.
Yeah.
Everything's perfect.
I think he's like 180 pounds now and 6'5".
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, the fitness of a Navy SEAL at the age of 80. Okay, sure. I think that the degree of the White House covering this up today, and I wrote about this on Substack earlier today, the degree of them covering this up, it's so egregious now, and it's so like in our faces now that they have no respect for the American people whatsoever on any of these things, that I find it kind of a remarkable moment that we're in.
Yeah.
That the press isn't putting this question front and center every single day.
Yeah, it's sort of like, I mean, we know that he's a pathological liar. So in some ways, we've all learned to adapt to this reality on a daily basis and just sort of deal with it. But you're right, it's so obvious and it's so egregious, and it just it leaves us with this like constant sense. Whatever comes out of his mouth, it can't be trusted, right? I mean, can we rewind for a moment to the days after the dare I say, the so-called assassination attempt in Butler, where there's bandage on the ear, for the Republican National Convention because he barely survived it, and meanwhile, the days before, over the weekend, he's playing golf with no bandage and no problem. Right. And there's never been any sign of a scar from that shooting. And it's just, I said at the time, and I know it's sort of slightly to the side of your point, but I said at the time, where were the medical doctors?
Sure.
The report, the records, that we as the public have a responsibility to see that we never saw.
He's an obsessive about talking about people who've done him wrong or have harmed him in some way. And yet we never, ever, ever hear him say a single word.
Yeah. And look, where, once again, where are why does a doctor at Walter Reed have to be courageous to actually say the actual condition of the president of the United States?
I mean, if we're going to see Carolyn Leavitt she's on leave, but we're going to see Stephen Chung and the rest of the White House staff go out and absolutely say, there's never been a healthier president. It's all fine. I want to move on from that because I think we all understand that he's lying. He looks like a guy who's been bitten by the zombie and he's just denying it.
Yeah.
with the black hand.
Can I ask? I know you one thing. I know you're not a medical doctor, but
No.
But how quick? I mean, how dramatically do you think the acceleration of his decline is?
I may not be a medical doctor, but I've watched people in politics lose their step. He's lost the step. I mean, I've watched people in my life lose their step, and he's lost the step. And I think it's exacerbated by his wildly unhealthy lifestyle to begin with, which has never been good, never been. You know, the guy who said, "I don't believe in exercise because you only have so much energy in your body." It's not how it works, but okay. I think it's been very pronounced, and I think that he's. I wrote about this today. Like I just said it outright. Donald Trump is dying, not just in the sense that all of us on this rock flying through space are dying. He's dying as a physical force. He's dying as a political force. He's dying as a cultural force, and I think that because he started out, his big splash into politics was saying Jeb is low energy. Hillary doesn't have the stamina.
Sleepy
Making it about the physicality that he once possessed in 2016. I think it makes it much worse for him now to watch his decline on live television.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to jump to this astounding slush fund story that everybody's been talking about for several days now. I look at this as a really unprecedented and deeply evil decision. Talk to us about what you see. The purpose of the slush fund in Trump's mind is beyond the bullshit of we're going to compensate our people.
Yeah, the people who have been wrongly treated by the weaponized Joe Biden Justice Department,
right?
People who were assaulting police officers on January 6th, people who were committing crimes, people who were prosecuted for those crimes, convicted, imprisoned because they committed serious felonies. And he wants to strip all that away, rewrite history, make us think that it really was just a tourist event that day. These were all just great patriots. So part of it is the propaganda of defining, what happened that day. The more insidious part of this is I worry about is that what he's looking to do, because it's always about loyalty with him, right? And it's always about, having a collection of people that he can use, that this is as much about building his personal militia. These are people who are supporters of him, who will be supporters of him. And can I say in some ways, the 1.8 billion is sort of the rewards that he's offering them. There was on Friday, there was a Justice Department motion that was filed to remove the charges of seditious conspiracy from Stuart Rhodes, right? Who was convicted for 18 years in prison. I think it was maybe the second longest sentence of all of them. The judge, this is Judge Amit Mehta, specifically made the point that, never had he sentenced somebody whose crimes were such a peril to democracy and were such a danger, his words were, to the fabric of our society. And so, letting a guy like that go, the guy who said, that the problem with January 6th was that we didn't actually bring our rifles. I'm putting these two together for reasons you can see.
He had, let's not forget also, he directed this. They had rifles, they had weapons just outside the district line in Alexandria, Virginia, in a hotel room. They had AR-15s, they had shotguns, they had handguns in a hotel room. The guy that was babysitting those weapons was waiting for the call from Rhodes and the other Oath Keepers in the city.
Yeah, this is the founder of the Oath Keepers. I mean, in case anybody, at this point forgets, but a
truly poisonous guy.
Yeah, and the thing is, he actually was 18 years. He got commuted. His sentence was commuted by Trump, so he served sort of around 20 months. And the point is, it's like apparently that wasn't enough. Now you have to remove the actual charges so that as if it never happened. And so, to your original point about the 1.8 billion, this is about rewriting history in such a fundamental way that it's grotesque.
Yeah, it really is quite something. Speaking of grotesque, I want to move on to the the on again, off again, on again, off again lie that we have a deal with Iran, because we don't have a deal with Iran. But we're back to having military strikes after over the weekend we were told that 95% of the deal is done. And today it's falling apart again because the things that Trump demanded in a tweet aren't real and can't be made true. Let's play this clip of Marco Rubio though, because it's just like it's so on the money for the moment.
I think that, like anything with something like this, and it's going to take a couple days to settle on, even down to the disagreements over a word sentence. So we'll have to work through that.
Poor Marco Rubio, really.
Poor Marco Rubio. He just doesn't, no matter how hard he tries, he will always have Donald Trump behind him digging another hole. And
I'm always thinking of him sitting in the room on that disgraceful day with in the Oval Office with Vladimir Zelensky, and Trump and Vance just attacking this man in the midst of a war to try to secure the sovereignty and save democracy for his country. And Marco Rubio was just sort of sliding deeper and deeper into his couch.
Painful. You could see his soul, the rest of his soul, leaving his body at that moment. But yeah, I mean, the impact of the Iran war, folks, is beyond what you're hearing and thinking about. It's funny because I'm out in San Francisco today on some business. I was having lunch with somebody who's really knowledgeable about the oil markets. Our reserves are getting close to zero. We're going to have a big crash in June, sometime in late June, when our strategic reserves run out and the company's reserves here in America start to run out. Mm-hmm. There's a clip we have of a guy telling us when gas prices are going to go back down. I want to play this so you guys understand the degree to which Donald Trump did this to you.
Yeah.
How long is it going to be before we actually start to see some relief? Look at this. This is where we were before the war started. This is where we are right now. There's a huge amount of time that it's going to take, according to the futures market, before we get back down to that sub $70 an oil level. Look at this, 2032. So you want $3 gas again? You're going to have to wait maybe 6 years.
There are people who think that the war ends and then the next day we're going to start seeing the prices go down.
That's exactly what I was going to ask you. It's like, why is it that the American people right now are disconnected from this idea that the consequences of this war are much longer running and much deeper running than Donald Trump throwing a switch?
I often think about this notion of the normalcy bias.
Sure.
This idea that, that you just, you sort of refuse to have the imagination for the possibility of catastrophe. And so you sort of, you adapt to certain realities that are actually far worse than they really are. And so, people can pick and choose specific economic indicators like, a high stock market that's at this point seems to somehow have tolerated all of this with the assumption that maybe things aren't really so bad. But a detail like that, and it's a detail that's indicative of something much bigger. Because obviously the ripple effects of high gas and oil prices are going to have consequences for food prices and transportation and pretty much everything.
It blows my mind that there is a belief out there somewhere that there is that there's some magical gas for our oil inventories. I think we have a slide on that, don't we? Mm-hmm. That our petroleum inventories are somehow, we don't actually, sorry, that they're infinite somehow, that they're just not. We've been burning through the SPR, the petroleum reserve, like crazy in the last 60 days now of this war, and it's just not going to get better. I find that amazing.
Yeah, and people who even think that before the midterm somehow that that tomorrow you're going to end the war, and that it's somehow going to sort of work out for people.
Yeah, Kevin Hassett pops up like a little weird Muppet from like Bad Touch Muppets every couple of days, and says, "Oh, it's going to be fine. We're fine."
But in a way, there's the same question that you were asking about Trump's health, right? Like we're not being told the truth about what's really happening. So we're not being told the truth about the war. It was in the first month we were told repeatedly that they declared victory, and that it was a major victory. We won. I'm just going to wait until they cry uncle and surrender with white flags, and all the sort of fictionalized pictures that he had of how this was going to work out heroically for him. And then how many times it's gone back and forth, the war that's ended, the war that's begun again, ceasefire, not a ceasefire, seems to be to manipulate the stock market. But again, it's all sort of part and parcel. Like nothing that he says can be trusted. And it's remarkable. I mean, I think at some point, a lot of the people who just sort of think, well, things will get better because they can't actually trust anything that he says, so they have to find some other way to understand what's really happening.
Okay, I want to move on to tonight, folks. By the time you watch this, Texas will be wrapping it up on their big primary, and tonight, all the public polling is that we're going to see Ken Paxton become the nominee this evening. Stephen, my view of it is this. This is good for Talarico either way. Mm-hmm. If Paxton wins, he's the most corrupt candidate in public life in America. And that's even including Donald Trump. Ken Paxton is a actual criminal who is somehow Attorney General of Texas. If he wins, it's a great campaign against him because he really is a contrast to Talarico and a contrast to this enormous public skepticism about our elected officials. If Cornyn wins, the MAGA people are going to go, "Oh, well, we didn't get our guy. We're going to stay home." So tell me what your take is on that race right now.
Yeah, well, look, I would actually agree with you that Paxton as the alternative provides a pretty fierce contrast. All right, it's very stark. I think it will give people reason for pause, and maybe at the very least, it makes Democrats and Democratic leaning independents more passionate about getting out there and voting. My concern is that the pro-Trump people are so locked in that it almost doesn't matter if it's Paxton or it's Cornyn. So it feels like the benefit in terms of being able to flip some Republicans is such a tiny percentage.
I think that's right. I think that's right. And I think, look, it's still a hard race, folks. It's still Texas. Talarico's magnificent campaigner. I mean, just a top tier Obama level, Reagan level campaigner, and
incredible speaker.
And you and I are both students of rhetoric and speeches and love that kind of stuff. And I watch Talarico and I'm just like, this is how it's done. This is where you want to go.
And maybe you could just touch on this. How much you think, because he has spoken to people of faith, he has found a way of sort of bringing in his own Christian values into this.
Sure.
And I have to believe there's at least some percentage of Republicans who listen to that and it resonates with them. It means something to them.
No question about it, Stephen. There is a fluency that he has talking about faith, talking about religion, talking about values, that many Republicans, when they hear it, skip a beat. They can't imagine it's a Democrat speaking to them.
They can barely remember hearing it.
Right. But a Democrat speaking to them in the language of faith, a guy who is deeply grounded in Christian gospel and dogma, who understands what he's talking about, who relates back to people of faith a narrative that they are not hearing anymore.
Yeah.
The narrative they're hearing is our religion is superior and we will punish those who are not like us. But the narrative that they grew up with, and that any fair reading of the gospel imputes, is Our faith tells us that we must be kind to others and do good to others.
Yeah.
So I think he really has something that I know Ken Paxton can't bring that to the table.
Yeah. Well, and he doesn't, I think for a lot of maybe, a lot of Republicans in exactly this way, he doesn't sound exactly like a typical Democrat. And so, there are people who've been trying to compare, what the race would look like sort of to Beto O'Rourke. And it just feels wrong to me because one is in some sense is a very traditional kind of progressive Democrat.
Yeah.
The other one is maybe similar in a lot of ways, but he speaks in a language that doesn't sound the same.
That's exactly right, Stephen. And I think he speaks to a language also that for Democrats, they are frequently talking to metropolitan, sophisticated, urban, highly educated audiences in robustly complex policy speeches. He is talking to the heart and the gut. And I think that really, really matters. So we're going to know a lot about this race, folks. I'm going to have some more to say about it tomorrow, obviously, after we get the results.
And it's going to be a heck of a lot of fun to watch, honestly.
Oh, yeah. And look, if Talarico wins in November, it is going to be a sign. It is going to be sort of an indicator of a much bigger night across the country. We're going to see that'll be a 35, 40 seat night for the Democrats, not a 20 seat night for the Democrats. And that'll be and if he wins that seat, we win the Senate. I mean, if that's the way the tide is running in the country that night, it's going to be a good night.
Is it too soon for you to predict, Rick?
Oh, yeah, too soon to predict. But I think Paxton has the advantage for this evening.
Yeah.
Trump's endorsement in the Republican primary, it's like his one garden party card trick that he can do now. He can't persuade the country, but he can persuade his own party to pick his guy. So I think Paxton will end up being the guy.
Yeah.
So we did have a little bit of redistricting news, folks, out of Alabama. The district court has sent the maps back. They will appeal this. I think it goes to the Fifth Circuit after this, and that means it's going to go back to Alabama and get appealed again, and then it's going to go to the Supreme Court, hypothetically. Don't hold your breaths on the state of Alabama doing the right thing on this one.
Yeah. Well, what's the remarkable thing is that, sort of in the same vein, is that South Carolina, state Senate chose not to go forward with redistricting. There are some forces at play at the state level that are surprising right now, and at least this judge's judgment here in Alabama, at least for the moment, is encouraging.
Yeah, I think that's right. But yeah,
I would add, if I can, I would just add the one other thing, which is, as much as we're going to look at whatever kind of redistricting happens sort of between now and when this finally gets sorted out, I don't think it's a given that even some of those redrawn districts are necessarily going to go Republican. I'm back to your point about how large a wave might happen in November, and if so, we might get some lovely surprises come that night.
I think that's exactly right. There's going to be, look, we know that the way they've done this, folks, by cutting all these new Republican seats, they've had to spread the peanut butter thinner across the toast. Okay. In Florida, I'll give you a good example, Stephen. There were 6 seats that were R plus 12 or better. All of those seats now, they're still Republican, but now they're like R plus 5, R plus 6. That's not great in a year where Donald Trump's numbers are so underwater and where the Republican Party's numbers, especially with independent voters, are so underwater. A lot of these redistricting cases will have very, very, very surprising knock-on effects that they're not planning on right now. I want to talk about something briefly. We rarely, if ever, folks, see political figures. We talk about political figures. We say, oh, so-and-so's brave to go out and stand in front of that microphone and say, don't do this, Mr. President, or do that, Mr. President. We say that they're brave. We say that they've got integrity and all that. I want to show you a picture from immigration protest in New Jersey and Andy Kim. That is on the right-hand side picture. You see Andy Kim, the senator from New Jersey, trying to calm down and de-escalate a situation that was caused by ICE and caused by DHS. And they pepper sprayed him. but that is a member of the U.S. Senate. And Andy Kim is not a big brawler of a dude, okay? He's not some badass, guy's going to go up, post up against these 275-pound ICE dudes in their body armor and all that. But that picture shows you something. That man took his duty to serve his people seriously. He stood in front of the crowd, between the crowd and ICE, and tried to de-escalate a situation that ICE caused.
Yeah.
I got to salute Andy on this, Stephen. I want to get your thoughts as well.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. His courage is real. It's visible in the picture. He was doing the right thing. He was doing a responsible thing. But it's one of those kind of pictures you do want to see that into the fall over and over. Not simply to support Andy Kim, but why in the world does a U.S. senator have to be in that position? And why in the world does this regime think it's appropriate to pepper spray somebody who is a United States senator? And I mean, where is the honor, where is the decency, where is the respect for the law? I mean, all these kind of things that we should be taking as foundational, and this this shouldn't, not only shouldn't it happen, have we heard an apology from ICE?
Of course not. That there is a degree in my mind to which ICE is really one of the most shameful aspects of this Trump administration, the second administration of Trump. And it is striking to me how quickly the right-wing media machine disappeared on covering ICE when they knew how much political damage it was causing.
Right.
But when you see a picture like that of a U.S. senator, I'll say something I know but from working with hundreds of elected officials over the years. Andy Kim has probably realized some things about himself and his own courage by doing that action, by standing there in front of those people, trying to stop ICE from attacking that crowd. He's probably learned something about himself, and it'll make him a better leader overall. And it really is a striking moment. I really want to salute the senator on this, because you just don't see that happen very frequently in our world, folks.
Couldn't agree more. And I just would also say, the courage in that moment, you hope that it will translate into the courage that he takes going forward. I mean, he's obviously, opposed a lot of what's been happening with ICE and more, but maybe in fact he becomes a more courageous, a fiercer opponent. At a time when we just need to get rid of all the business as usual, careful responses.
Yeah, the my honorable friend on the other side of the aisle thing is not working right now, folks.
Yeah. Can I just, if I can, I just also want to say, I mean, to me, again, it's sort of it's the violence and the destruction and the violation of the rule of law. All the kind of things that we can see sort of implicit in that. But it's also, in some ways, I think, connects meaningfully with this question about corruption. The sort of the sense that these people will do anything that they think serves their interest. Our values, our people, the rule of law, our Constitution, all of those things can be tossed away. And I hope, whether it's using that photograph and it's a dual photograph, right? It's the courage of Andy Kim, and it's also the horror that he needs to be in that situation with those thugs behind him. Right. So, you hope that it's the corruption, it's the violence, it's the utter recklessness and carelessness about affordability, and ultimately it's about accountability. And to me, that moment, it screams out for why accountability is absolutely critical.
100%. I want to wrap up. We've got the UFC fight coming to the White House, a moment of pure Vulgarian delight for the MAGA crowd. Folks, as my wife pointed out today, I was told that Trump had to have a ballroom to stay secure, but he can hang out outside for 4 hours watching wrestling. Stephen, I mean, this is just a really grotesque sort of bread and circuses moment. Yeah. And I mean, how do you recover from this as a culture? It's so sick.
Yeah, it's glorifying violence. It's degrading the history of the White House. It's degrading the history of the presidency. Yeah. It's doing it right up near the within a month of the 250th anniversary of the founding of the nation, which, you can treat it, as an amusing celebration, or you can treat it as actually something that's kind of a sacred event in the life of the country. And so, this show, it may appeal to his sort of, his more extreme base, but I don't think it communicates to the country writ large in a way that's anything but destructive.
Exactly. Well, Steven, I want to thank you for coming on the show tonight. And folks, Steven has a new show coming up, 6 Questions with Steven Beschloss. His show premieres June the 3rd, which is coming up in a week. And his first guest is Mary Trump, 7 p.m. East Coast time. Steven, I'm excited for the show, man. Tell me a little bit more about it.
Thank you so much. Well, look, the idea is that there's lots of hot takes. There's lots of sort of insights that we can find. The idea is to let's take a look at what's going on in the news, but really let's ask the questions behind the news, right? Let's ask and think about the ideas that matter. We can talk about, covering what's happened, but let's ask some of the larger questions about, if it's Mary, it's talking about, mental illness and national trauma. Kind of an important topic, I think. The guest after that is George Conway, and we're surely going to be talking about accountability and still the potential of the removal of Donald Trump. In the third week, I'm talking to Eddie Cloud, brilliant historian at Princeton, and to talk about sort of race and racism. So those 3 are an example that we're trying to hit very big ideas, big topics connected to the news. And to do it, 6 questions. So we're going to do it with speed. We're going to do it with focus. We're not going to spend an hour and a half. We're going to dig in, and then we're going to hopefully leave you with something that
I love it, man. It's like a lightning round show. I love it.
Thank you so much.
So, folks, tune in next week to 6 Questions with Steven Beschloss for the premiere episode on June 3rd at 7 p.m. East Coast time. Steven, thanks again. Folks, you can always do us a big favor. Whatever platform you're listening to this on, whether it's YouTube or Instagram or Substack or wherever it is, do us a big favor, like, subscribe, follow, whatever the format you're in. That would be very helpful to us. We are growing this channel and we're growing this programming rapidly. As you can see, Steven's show is going to be an important new part of the Lincoln Square Network. And we will see you guys again next Tuesday. I am traveling this week. Actually, I may not be with you next Tuesday because I think I'm in the air on next Tuesday, but we'll find out. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.
Always a pleasure, Rick.
Thanks, Steven.